Screenwriter. Today I have my guest, Marlon Green, who is a graduate of Morgan State University. He's a movie producer, director, screenwriter, ghostwriter, editor, and author. Welcome on board, Marlon. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, I gave a brief introduction for yourself. If you want to go a little bit more into some of your accomplishments, who you've worked for, that'll be great, just so everyone can get an understanding of what you do.
All right. Graduated Morgan State University, like you mentioned. After that, became an elementary school teacher. And toward the tail end of that, I began writing books, met the great Nikki Giovanni. She told me what I need to do to achieve the goal of becoming published and all that good stuff. And from there, I began releasing books, started an editing company, had about maybe 3 or 4 editors at the most at one time, and began doing stage plays and opened up a bookstore. And all that time I was trying to figure out how to produce and direct my own movie and couldn't figure it out. Finally, after going through the motions and losing a lot of money with upstart producers and camera people and sound people and all that, I began visiting other people's sets and got my money back up. You know what I'm saying? Because you take an L, you have to bounce back. So bounce back, finally produced my own movie the right way. And it's in post-production right now. And the title is We Go Deep, which is a romantic comedy shot here in Maryland, DC, PG County in Northeast DC. And hopefully that'll be out later this year. And right now, just working on the soundtrack and get the music right for it. And I think that's almost everything.
Okay, because the reason why you're here, Marlon, is because it is the leadership corner. Is because I noticed like actors, actresses, I know some great leaders, and they kind of they diversify themselves and reach other arenas and ways to reach a new audience. And sometimes it's through writing books, sometimes it's through podcasts, if you will, and a lot of motivational type settings, like Steve Harvey, he's doing a motivational thing, some John Maxwell or Steve Siebold, some of those people, and it almost seems like it's a great match, because if you're a leader in one arena, then you can use your audience and bring that audience with you into another arena. And some people usually go into the writing the books, and if you're good enough, you kind of get into the arena of producing or screenwriting, something that kind of expands your story into another realm. So a couple of questions, right? Now, a leader has to have, the great creative mind, right? And if a leader doesn't have that creative mind, then they hire it out, right? They hire the minds that are creative. So with what you do, where do you get the ideas when you're creating, and how do you put that content together?
I'm very imaginative. I'm very cognizant of what's going on around me. And I take a lot of notes. So if an idea comes to mind, if I'm talking to somebody, or if I'm driving and I see something, or just something takes place in my mind, or I hear something and it doesn't go how I think it should go, or it's sort of predictable, my mind will say, oh my goodness, if they would have did this, that would have opened the story up that way. And then you would have had more options as a storyteller, and you could throw your audience off and keep them more interested, keep them more intrigued in your story. And when coming across situations like that, I normally would write everything down. I used to have a pen and pad. I used to carry it everywhere with me, keep it in my back pocket. And I would write in traffic, but I wouldn't look at the pen and pad. I would just write to the side. Just had a pad down in the seat and I write. Then I got to the point, because that could be dangerous, so I got to the point where I would just hit record. I have a recorder, and if an idea comes up, I would record it. If I didn't have my recorder, and you have recorders in your phone too, if I was unable to do so, I would go to the side, write something down in the phone, just type it in my notepad. So I have tons of notes in my phone as to different ideas. And actually that's the title of the file. It's actually creative ideas.
Great. You mentioned the note taking. That's something that was one of my weakness, and it is a great um, a great thing for leaders to do, because you're on a fly. You're always going into meetings. You're running out, or when you get home, you're running errands, such and such, and all of a sudden, the light bulb comes on, and you're like, "Hey!" And if you're like me, I'm getting a little older, right? The light bulb comes on, and then like 10 seconds later, you're like, what did I just think? I just forgot it that quick. So the note taking comes in pretty well for not letting great ideas escape you. What advice do you have for those that want to write a book?
Writing books, write everything down, write. When you're done writing, write some more. When you don't feel like writing, write some more, because that's the hardest part. As an editor, I come across a lot of writers that maybe write a quarter of a book or half a book, and they don't know what to do, or they're concerned about the title, they're concerned about the ending, they're concerned about everything, and they have so much more they need to do, from character development to making the scenes more, I would say, visual to the reader, try to get into the minds of the characters and all this kind of good stuff. So there are many different avenues that people need to take before they even get to the point of completing the book. But in the meantime, once they knock all that out, they can slide things to the editor and let the editor take care of everything. And it's going to cost you, but let the editor take care of everything, as opposed to you bouncing back, trying to rewrite and then rewrite your rewrites, and then coming back 3 months later and writing some more of what you've already written while you're trying to write the current part of the book. And that's not good. That's terrible for time management. It's terrible for the timeline of your book. I actually have a cousin who, well, I didn't know he was trying to write a book. I didn't know he was writing a book. I'm gonna say that because he wasn't trying, he was actually writing it. When my first book came out, he looked at me like I was, an alien or something. So after I talked to whomever, I went over to him. I was like, "What's up, Bobcat?" He said, "When did you start writing this book?" I said, "About two years ago." And he said he'd been writing a book for about 9 years, and he's stuck. He doesn't know what to do. And after messing with me, about, I believe, 6 months later, his book was out. His book was published. And as a matter of fact, while we on that, I think I have something right here. How you bring that up? Actually, this is one of his books right here. And this is a comic book he created. That's not the first book. The book was actually a novel. But my great aunt, once I came out with my children's book, which is right up here,
Yep.
Great Adventure of Little Marlon, that book is titled Never Hit Girls. Teaching little boys chivalry and all that kind of good stuff, and not to put their hands on women. We're going to cut off domestic violence before it even begins, catch them at the root. So
Yes,
my aunt, who's I think probably in her 90s now, when my children's book came out, she called me over to her house, and when she called, of course, I ran over there, and she showed me some typing paper, some handwritten papers, and all. It was a pile. And she said she had that book since 1985, when I think her second grandson was born, third grandson was born. And she wanted to get a book done like mine. So, of course, I took everything she had, and I hired artists and everything, and I took care of it. So I bring that up because those are examples of, if you don't know what to do, just pay somebody to do it and get it out your head because there's no sense in if you have a leak in your sink that you try to study and become a plumber and destroy everything or just mess up your home or take unnecessary time to try to learn something that you don't need to learn because you need to be writing.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, so if you're you're not a plumber, you're supposed to be painting, or you're supposed to be a mechanic, or you have an office job, whatever you're supposed to do, you don't have time to get books or go on YouTube, try to figure out how to be a plumber. That's something totally out of your wheelhouse. Let somebody else do it. Keep moving with your life. Next thing you know, you have two things being done at the same time. Your book is done. That's simple.
Okay. Now, some of the books you mentioned, and a great concept with the uh, you know, boys turning into men, hitting on girls, you know, or women. So kudos to that. That's kind of dear to me. I grew up in an environment similar to that. But the books you were talking about, those are fictional books. What advice do you have for people writing a nonfiction or want to do an autobiography? Are those some of the same concepts?
Autobiography, take great notes, record when you can't write, because writing a novel, you don't have to record, but many times writing is a little harder to do if you don't really know how to deliver your message. But if you can tell your story, then maybe you can write how you speak. And if you speak well and you're a great storyteller or a good storyteller, then everything will come off better on paper. And if you write an okay book, an editor should take you up a level or two. So you go from an okay story to a good story. And if you're a good storyteller, then hopefully your editor can take you to being a great storyteller once they get their hands on it. So
Okay.
I'm working on someone's autobiography right now. I'm pretty much done. And I'm really happy about that because I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and started working on it. There are maybe, I would say, 4 pages left because it's already been through the first edit. So I need to add maybe 4 or 5 more pages, and it's going to be officially done for the author to review, or the biographer to review, and then it goes to the second editor. So yeah, that's what I suggest for people doing their autobiographies.
Okay, now being a producer, director, and a screenwriter, you've been dealing with different personalities, or even just helping others write the book. You're dealing with a personality. But I'm going to gear this a little bit towards your screenwriting and some of your producing, directing. What personality conflicts have you had, and how did you resolve them?
Oh my goodness. Egos are a cancer on stage play sets, on TV show sets, movie sets, music. It may work out in the music studio, but when it comes to acting, that ego can get in the way because people sometimes vie for a position instead of sticking to what their character is supposed to do. So if your character has a certain personality, and if your character's personality is someone that's timid and very nice and pleasant, you need to remain that way. I don't care if you're super masculine. You need to bring it down and be what the character requires you to be. That's what you call acting. If you see Denzel shed a tear in the movie, or someone real strong do something very kind, that's acting, because they probably won't do that in real life if they were faced with that issue. But for the sake of this story, they have to act it that way. But some people will bring their own personalities, which consists of a lot of egos. We're mainly talking about men right here. Bring their own personalities and their egos along with it onto the set and deliver it with the character and change the entire dynamic of the character. And that, in that case, you need a new actor, but you may not have the time, so you have to really try to reel them in and get them focused on what needs to be done. Because I've had people say to me, thinking about one person in particular, nah, I wouldn't do that like that. I wouldn't do that like that. Nah, he can't get away with that. No. In this story, someone else is going to take care of what that person can't get away with. This character, the one that you're playing, no, you have to let him get away with it. You know, you had your time later. So ego. And another actor who had 2 lines in this particular scene, this particular part of the scene, he had 2 lines. And he turned those 2 lines into 2 minutes because he had more that he wanted to say. And you can't do that because you throw everything off. Everything. That 2-minute line probably would have took 8 seconds to say. Excuse me, those 2 lines would have took about 8 seconds to say. He turned that into 2 minutes, and oh my goodness. It could have been catastrophic, but it did throw time off. Yeah. And time is crucial when you're on sets because every second is money. And if I'm paying for everything, I don't want to lose money, and I don't want to waste somebody else's money. So.
Okay, so you mentioned a personality conflict. Now, have you ever been so frustrated where you just had to tell someone to leave, or you walked off the set yourself?
No, and hopefully that never happens. Hopefully I could take a deep breath and figure things out, because a lot of what you're faced with on set, in my mind, are puzzle pieces. And you just have to figure out what piece goes with which, or how to deliver or twist one piece to make it work better with the puzzle. And the puzzle constantly changes. I got to write that down, so I'm gonna keep that in mind. But the puzzle constantly changes. So imagine putting a puzzle together where the picture changes or the pieces change. So now you have to keep redoing things. Meanwhile, if something fits, that piece stays there, but everything else keeps adjusting. That's how it is. And I've definitely been frustrated before on one of my stage productions. Actually, this happened twice on 2 different productions. I was dealing with a lot of new actors, and they didn't know that. I'm not even gonna bring that one up. And in this other case, they got everything. They just weren't rehearsing properly on the set. So normally you have rehearsals at some type of rehearsal place, and then the day before you do the production, you go to where you're actually going to have the show, and you do a walkthrough. So now, instead of being in someone's basement or being in a hotel room or ballroom or wherever, now you're on the scene, and all the seats are empty, but all these people froze. And I didn't understand how they could freeze when there was no one in attendance. Now, I would rather you freeze in rehearsal and when there's no one in attendance than when there's an audience there. And that would make more sense to me, but there was no one there, and people would stand there with their mouths open like they never knew the script, like we never went over anything. And that was mind-boggling. I never saw that happen before. But the next day they came out and we rocked it.
Okay. Now, you've mentioned that you put your money up for some projects, right? And even with that, when you put your money up, you have to have an expectation of what return you want on your investment, right? has there been a time where you started working on a project and you got into it and you're like, man, you know, the personality conflicts, scheduling conflicts, you can't get the people you want. The timing seems like a little off where you're getting set back. And you're just like, man, I don't know if I look at the money I've put into it, the time I've invested into it, is it worth continuing with this project or should I just nix it right now and just recoup what I can recoup and get back to the drawing board or move on to another project?
I go through that all the time, wondering if you should cut bait and leave things where they are and keep it moving. Sometimes you persevere, sometimes it's not worth it with the person or set of people that you have. And that persevering element, that's something special, because when it comes to casting movies, getting the right actors in, when it comes to getting the right singers or music producers, that's rough. And if you don't have a tough skin, it can break you. You get enough no's from people that should tell you yes, that bothers you. And if you get no's from people you really think quite highly of, that can bother you, and so on and so on. I've had people approach me. So it's bad facing rejection, but it's necessary and it's just gonna happen. So you had to get over it. So when you're rejected because you reached out to somebody and asked them to work on your project and they say, no, I'm not interested, that can make you feel bad. It'd be different if they listen to everything, they ask some questions, and they say, you know what, this is not for me. That's not so bad. I can understand that. But if you tell them you would like to work with them or whatever, and they say no. And what if you tell them that you would give them 90% of the project and they say no? And you say, do you like the project? The project looks excellent. You know what I'm saying? We cool? Yeah, we cool. They just don't want to do it. So that's just something you have to get over. And it can be mind-boggling. It can bother you. Say, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Even not 90%, 50%, because normally people are used to getting cut in very low. So if you offer someone with some stature a nice percentage and they say no, you say that's bad. But I've had people, and this is this is more mind-boggling than all that. I had people come to me and ask me, could they be a part of a project? And we work things out. I said, oh, okay, it's nice to hear from you. Yeah, we can do something. And they say, yeah, because I got A, B, C, and D, and this is all it'll cost you. And I say, you know what, that fits the budget. Let's work. And they disappear. And you never hear from them again. And you say, this doesn't make sense. I didn't come to that person, ask them things, and they just felt like they were just giving me the runaround just to get me out their face. They came to me, so they had to waste their time calling me or emailing me or bumping into me and presenting what they have to me. Why would they do that? And then just disappear. So you hear some weird things. I had an R&B singer that is from a very well-known group. Very well-known group. Late 80s, early 90s, well, all through the 90s. And this person called me and talked to me for about 45 minutes telling me what he can offer. I'm thinking I struck gold. And I don't mean gold is in money. I mean gold is in the opportunity to let someone open up the gate a little bit. So imagine, so Marvin Gaye is no longer with us, so I can use Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye calls you and says, I hear about you have this and this going on. I would love to do this, and I have a song right here and all this kind of stuff. And you talk for 45 minutes and he contacted you. And then he disappears.
Yeah.
He said, this is weird. This is weird. And they talking all excited and everything. And y'all talk a couple of times. And he just weird. So I don't know. But it happens, and you just got to keep it moving.
Yeah,
I don't take.
I think sometimes people have an idea, they move forward, and then at some point they might get a low nervous twitch, or they have some type of fear, or maybe another opportunity just happened to come along right afterwards or simultaneously, and they were trying to work both projects, and then something else came through. It was like, oh, I'll take this opportunity. So it's kind of like covering the field and just hoping that the best opportunity, or the first opportunity sometimes presents itself. That's the one you jump to.
That may be the case, but I don't know. But when I bump into him, it's gonna be drinks from me, no hard feelings.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So working with all these people, of course, communication has been through, you said phones, you've reached out to people, they've reached out to you and everything. And you also talked about, landing the big personality, or a character that would kind of swing the doors wide open for you as far as exposure. So what are your future goals? Do you have anybody you want to work with, or anybody that you have in mind, and you're actually turning the wheels or trying to present something to them at this point?
There's not really anyone that I have in mind for any particular projects. There are some people I would love to work with, including I would love to work with Taraji. I would love to be on set with Tyler Perry, Spike Lee, and there's some other people that I would love to work with. That whoever can make the project come to life. So, for an example, if I had the opportunity to work with, let's say, Vivica Fox, but she doesn't fit the character for this script, then I couldn't work with her with that particular movie. That's if she was being an actress, because I know she also directs movies and she produces movies. I think she does the same with TV shows. But if she doesn't fit my main character, then I couldn't use her. And say the woman fit the role more of Jill Scott or Viola Davis or something, then that's who I would have to roll with. So I haven't pinpointed anybody for what I have cooking next. I have a really good suspense thriller, and I'm trying to figure out who to go after for it. I have a few people in mind, but I don't know. I definitely don't know for the main woman. I have a main character for the man already, and he's cool and he's ready to work. He's not a talker and then a runner. He's ready to work. So I got the male role landed. I just need a nice woman for it.
Okay. Well, Marlon, it's been a pleasure. Um, some of the things that high points of the conversation, besides what you do as far as being a movie producer, director, editor, screenwriter, and a ghostwriter, is you actually touched on some good points. Taking great notes, right? We are, as leaders, and anybody, note taking is great for anyone. We walk around with these things here, that we spend all this money for, and we have great ideas, great thoughts. Don't let it escape you. Just go into the note section, or if you're at home, like how you said, old school, grab a pen and paper and write down your thoughts. It's easy to organize it at that point, and then you just expound on it. You talked about communication and stuff, where You have to, sometimes people like texting, some people like emailing, some people like, picking up a phone. But whatever source of communication you use, cater it to the person that you're dealing with. Um, you talked about, sometimes looking at where you're going as far as, let's say, a project, just saying if it's worth it. There's never a point of no return. There's only, for myself, a point of stubbornness, right? Where I'm already into it. I got to go all the way through it. And sometimes you have to look at some of the elements of it, your investment versus what you're getting out of it. And if what you're getting out of it isn't worth the investment, then maybe it's time to reconsider the direction you're in, or at least tweak it a little bit, right? So those are some of the things I kind of drew out of the conversation, and that I think the viewers should get out of it. And leaders, a lot of leaders have great ideas, great concepts, and they're great leaders. And sometimes they want to actually, write a book, or a leadership book, or sometimes they want to expand into a new audience. And I think screenwriting and book writing is one of those great assets that leaders use to reach a larger audience. So I thank you for being on board, and I'll leave it up to you if you have any closing statements that you want to make. But I've had a great time and I've learned a lot.
I appreciate you having me on your show. It was a pleasure. Anybody that is looking forward to creative, original content, the movie We Go Deep is going to be out this year. And I'm really going to revel in the bliss of enjoying accomplishing that major goal. I've done short films and worked on sets, help other people do their movies, help other people with their TV shows. So finally, I can do mine. And that's going to be available. I don't know what streaming service it is, but y'all can keep in contact with me. There's going to be a link for my website and a link probably for IG or something. So if you need to contact me about staying in contact with when I'm going to release as far as the movies go, that'll be great. You can do it that way. Also, if you need editing or just consulting for your book or your screenplay, whatever it is you need to do, if it's something about writing, if it's something about producing or directing, feel free to contact me. I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you, Marlon. Thanks for being there, sir.
I appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for joining us once again on the Leadership Corner. And I just ask that you subscribe, tell a friend to subscribe.